On the night the Titanic sank, 2 men sat in a cold, cramped room at the top of the world's largest ship. They were sending distress signals into the dark. One stayed until the power died. The other survived and went back to work the next morning. His name was Harold Bride. He was 22 years old, junior Marconi operator. This was his first Atlantic crossing. The senior operator, Jack Phillips, was the craftsman. Bride was the apprentice, eager, sharp, and quietly proud to be there. The Marconi room was small, a narrow space at the top of the ship, humming with the spark gap transmitter, smelling of hot metal and cigarette smoke. 2 days before the iceberg, the wireless set broke down entirely. Phillips and Bride spent hours repairing it through the night. If they had not fixed it, there would have been no distress signal, no rescue, no survivors. The sea would have taken all of them without a word. April 14th, nearly midnight. Phillips was at the quay, clearing a backlog of passenger messages, stock prices, dinner arrangements, greetings to families waiting in New York. Bride was asleep in the adjoining cabin. Then he felt it, a sudden jar. Not violent, just enough to know something was wrong with the ship. He went up to the boat deck. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw the ice, scattered across the forward well deck like gravel. He returned to the Marconi room, told Phillips they had struck ice, and went back to sleep. He was 22. He did not yet know what ice could do to a ship like this. 12:15 in the morning. The captain appeared at the door. His face was the face of a man who had already made his calculations and did not like the answer. He told them to begin sending the distress call. Then he left without further explanation. By the time Bride reached the room, Phillips was already transmitting. Bride suggested the new signal. The emergency signal they had just adopted internationally. He told Phillips it might be his last chance to ever send it. Phillips laughed. In the middle of a sinking ship. Jack Phillips laughed at the joke. Then he sent the new signal. 1:40, 5 in the morning. The power was failing, the lights flickered. The spark gap transmitter grew weak and unreliable. A man appeared at the door. He tried to pull the lifeboat from Phillips's back, while Phillips was still transmitting, still sending, still calling into the dark. Bride struck him. He went down. Phillips never stopped sending. 2:10 in the morning. The Marconi room went completely dark. Phillips kept transmitting by feel alone, his hands knowing the key the way a pianist knows without looking. Bride told him to save himself, that the batteries were gone, that there was nothing left to send into. They left the room together. The ship was nearly vertical when they reached the boat deck. The stern was rising. The noise was unlike anything either man had ever heard. Bride saw Phillips climb onto an overturned, collapsible lifeboat in the water. Then a wave took them in different directions. That was the last time Bride saw him alive. Bride found himself trapped beneath the overturned hull of the same boat. Men were climbing onto it above him, their weight pressing the wood down against his feet in the freezing water. He stayed there until dawn. The men shifted their weight in unison through the night to keep it from sinking. They whispered to each other, "Stay awake. Keep moving." Hold on, Jack Phillips was on that boat. He died before the Carpathia arrived. Exposure, the doctors said. He was 25 years old. The Carpathia reached them at first light. Bride was pulled aboard on a stretcher, barely conscious. His feet were destroyed by the cold and the weight of the men above him. The ship's doctor wrapped what remained of his toes and told him to rest. For perhaps 20 minutes, Bride was simply a young man who had survived something unsurvivable. Then someone came to find him. They carried him to the Marconi room on a stretcher and set him down beside the equipment. He could not stand. He put on the headphones. He found the key with his hands. And he began sending, over the next 72 hours, Bride, and the Carpathia's operator transmitted the first accurate survivor list to the world. The Titanic's lifeboats were still being unloaded on the deck below them. Families in New York, London, and Belfast learned whether their people had lived or died. Because Harold Bride refused to stop working, the Marconi company paid him $350. They gave him a medal. He testified at the British and American inquiries. Then he went home to London, took a train to see his father, and said almost nothing about what had happened. He was not ready to speak. He would never fully be ready. Bride lost part of his toes to frostbite. He walked with a limp for the rest of his life. He returned to sea as a wireless operator anyway. After the war, he became a travelling salesman. He married. He had children. He moved to Scotland and lived quietly for the rest of his years. When reporters came looking for the story, he turned them away. Everyone. Jack Phillips stayed at the quay until the power died. Harold Bride survived, dragged himself onto a stretcher, and went back to work. 2 men, 1 room, 1 night that neither of them chose and neither of them escaped. 2 ways of carrying the same darkness for the rest of a life.